So this is the garbage enclosure for St. Thomas Colony, the far north end of the complex. And what you see here is a paint peeling condition that is the result of painting a previously stained material. So what happens here is the paint is been applied to the stained area, and it comes off in very large chunks like this after it gets exposed to the sun and dries. Why it does that is because this has been previously stained. Stain does two things. It enhances the color, but it seals the wood as well. So the stain is still working here, sealing that wood. So when you put paint over it without preparation, it will come off in large chunks like it is here. So this is very poor preparation in preparing to paint this area. So it's like painting wax paper is what it's like. So this is very unsightly. Once you paint something, then you have to maintain it, and this is going to be an ongoing thing here. So we'll move a little farther down here. These concrete pads, there's one of these at each mailbox area, I believe. I haven't been down and looked at all of them. However, we're going to be putting some asphalt in here. And what needs to happen here is these have been here a long time, rusting away, and there's metal studs sticking out. It's a tripping hazard. We need to remove these. And it's a concrete pad that's probably sunk very deep. We don't have to remove it. We just have to grind it down and make it flush so we can put the asphalt over the top of it. So basically what we're doing here is getting a 4-inch grinding wheel, grinding the studs off, grinding the metal away to below the level of the existing asphalt. Take a masonry wheel on a circular saw, make a crosshatch pattern here, and hit it with a chisel. You only have to go down probably about 2 inches here, maybe 3 inches, to make this be allowed to cover over with the asphalt that's coming. If you don't do that, of course, you're going to have a hump here, and it's going to look unsightly, or these guys will just go around it without instruction, thinking that it's something that we want to have exposed. So something that I've heard people ask about in meetings, and something that concerns me as well. So we'll see what happens with this stuff here. Parking lot, fire lane's pretty much a disaster. A lot of these areas hold water. There's very poor drainage here. And if we walk this way here, you're going to see a spot that always holds water, and there's no place for it to go. So it sits here. It ponds here. You can see a little element of water here. So this always damages this area. So this asphalt resurfacing, this should be crowned so it flows away and off of the pavement into this area here. Or you can even dig a little ditch right here and put some rocks in there, make a basin, make a temporary catch basin to allow the water to drain. And once you do that, you'll eliminate that crumbling of the asphalt there. So we're walking along the fence here, St. Thomas Colony, the North Holiday Trail. This fence is actually originally was very attractive. Nice round post, old weathered wood, no paint on it, looks pretty nice. But when you get down to the repair areas, then you start seeing some issues. And what you see here is instead of round posts, they did square posts. So anytime you're doing a fence repair or replacement, you always have to try to match what's there. So the rule that I have is use lines, levels, and squares and make undetectable repairs. We didn't do that here. So what you have here is a bunch of square posts that look out of place. The round posts were certainly available at Menards, either special order in 10 days probably. And we could have made this all look very uniform. Right now it looks like an emergency repair, which it was not. And I talk about lines, levels, and squares. Look at the top of this fence. There's no line that was followed here. Fences should be even at the top and cut the boards at the bottom. So whoever did this work shouldn't even be working here. Whoever managed this work, I suspect they knew better, but let it go, thinking nobody would look at this. When this was done, I was shaking my head. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. So probably what happened here is at the bottom, that's where your feral cats come in, by the way. So we left them a little opening. They probably had rocks down here, and they'd set the fence picket on the rock and just nail it in, you know. They really didn't didn't care what this thing looked like. So it's just really an eyesore, really a bad job. So this area too also has a couple of concrete pads here that have been here since I've been here. And apparently there's some type of structure on this at one point. Me personally, I'd like to see this stuff busted out of here. This is building 12, and up at the top where the roof meets the vertical wall is always an area that's going to take on water and be a vulnerable spot on these buildings. So what you have here is snow will drift up there and lean on that wall, and eventually it just gets saturated, and over it gets water on it, and it starts to decay. And that's what you're looking at here. That particular hole up there actually leaks water into the unit that's below it. So what happens there then, of course, birds or insects, but particularly mold, when you have water getting into the buildings. It never really dries because there's no sun on it, and there's no way for the water to dry, so it promotes mold growth. So every place that there's a hole, water's getting into these buildings, and mold is potentially growing back there. And if you look down here further, you see a whole panel right up there that's really coming off. So these buildings will not make it through next winter. So that is the first area that needs to be addressed, is these holes in these buildings, because it's been neglected so long that they're taking on water now. So it's just total decay. We're stepping out of my unit, which is 11.5 St. Thomas Colony, onto my little deck. You can see paint peeling off the deck boards, off the railings, moving outside. Now you see my fireplace chase. Now what happens here, and these are often maintenance challenges here, fireplaces always are, because they meet the roof and they have a flat top. So what happens here is snow sits on top of there. When it's hot, when the sun bakes during the day, it melts, and when it runs down the side of the building, then it freezes, and any little hole it gets into, it expands and it pushes, and it makes caulking very difficult to maintain. So that's typical of fireplaces, fireplace chases. So what ultimately happens here is that water gets behind and inside the fireplace chase and runs down the side here on both sides and creates decay. So what we have here is an area where it kind of pooled up because there was an obstruction here, which is the gutter. And what happened Saturday morning, I got woken up by a woodpecker hammering away at this spot here. You can see what they're doing is they're looking for grubs in here. This is all just decay in here. So any tree that's decayed in the woods is going to hold grubs, and that's why they go there, and that's why they went here. You can see they got very disappointed because along this line, that's their peck mark. They gave up. They hit metal. They said, this is not right. I can't eat here. So they moved on. But I was woken up at that point. This has been quite a few years it's been like this. Going down the chase, I poked my screwdriver in here, and I'll do it again. You can see this is decayed. I'm able to really just shove my screwdriver in there, just flake it off. This needs to be replaced. We can't paint this. Painting this is a non-starter for me. You're just putting lipstick on a pig at this point here. So this is all just in need of a replacement, and then proper maintenance over the years to keep it upkept. Here we are stepping out of my unit, lower level, 11.5 St. Thomas Colony, and we're going to look at the pipe chase here at the lower extremities here. We talked earlier about the water running down. You can see I was able to poke my screwdriver in each of these spots here. This is all decay all the way down. This is a real good example. Look at it, just flakes away. I won't touch it anymore because I don't want animals to get in there. That's the next step. The animals will come in. They'll start making homes here, and the decay and dilapidation will continue here. And this type of thing is found throughout this complex in varying degrees. So this is something that needs to be addressed right away. As you get lower here, you can see the boards come away here. It's no longer held on here. It's crumbling, split. As you get closer to the end here, here's where you get some decay. So you can see I can stick my screwdriver, and that's a prime example of wood touching ground, and it no longer is wood. It's trying to make dirt. Dirt is trying to make dirt. Mother Nature's doing her best to reclaim this area that we built Vacation Village on in the 70s. And boy, I got to tell you, she's winning, because this is not looking good. And that's just a minor area. If you look on all the buildings, look on your building, you'll see this type of condition everywhere. Take your screwdriver out there. Go ahead and poke around out there. You'll see that screwdriver will just jump right into that building, and you'll be amazed. This is the south side of Building 11, which is my building. And what you see here is very aggressive sun exposure, which results in a dry rot condition, which is what we're looking at here. So you can see that the paint has been eroded by the UV rays and the constant baking of the sun. So what happens here is the ply separate on the siding panels, and then the wood fibers itself start to flake off, and you end up with a situation where it will start taking in water, which it started to do here. And you always see that at the bottom. So you're looking here, here's where I can stick my screwdriver right into that decay there, because now the dry rot up top has led to the core saturation below, because it allowed water to get in there. And in this case, it dries and it gets wet, and it dries and it gets wet. And that sequence of events over time end up to the whole panel being damaged through with the UV rays. So the remedy here is to constantly paint this. Once that paint goes on there, you have to monitor that paint, because once it starts getting chalky, you know that the paint is deteriorating, and you need to paint this side of the building more than any side of the building, be it north, east, or west, because of the nature of the sun exposure here. So what they did to try to remedy this and keep the bugs out is they sprayed some foam up in here, which looks horrible. There's a big gap under there because this is all coming off. This is just in need of replacement now. So you can't paint this. This is just total decay here. So, and that is found all the way up this thing. You can see the series of nails here that have been put in here. And they're trying to salvage what's here instead of maintaining it. They're just trying to salvage it at this point. So if this was, you could see the buckling here, right there. There's some buckling here. So that's all UV dry rot damage. So this whole side of this building needs to be replaced. This is the north side of Building 10. And what you see here is the shaded side of the building, which promotes mold and water being held into the wood here. It never really dries completely, and if you allow it to start saturating the core of the siding and don't caulk this area, which allows that to happen, you get some decay here. So what you're looking at right there is halfway up the building where the siding panels meet, the batten board allowed water to sit there over years and years with no caulk there and no maintenance. The wood starts to decay, and then you have a hole. What ultimately happens there is once you have a hole, now you're inviting insects in there. Since it's higher up, this is a good area where birds will come in, or ants or bees, and they'll make a home inside that wall. And that's just an open invite there. That's a hole. So what you see here at the lower portions is mold. This area needs to be pressure washed on a regular basis. Paint on the shaded side of the building doesn't necessarily need to be replaced. You don't have to paint the building over and over and over. You just have to maintain it because it's not being exposed to the UV rays that damage paint on the south side, which is common in this complex. So what has to happen here as a maintenance is pressure wash, check the caulk, see if it's there, put caulk where it needs to be, and touch up paint it, and this wood would have lasted far longer than it did right now. And sheds, I want to talk about sheds for a minute. Here you have a shed that was built on this property and attached to the building. Now it's ours. We own it. It's common property in my eyes. It's touching the building. There it is. This building is dilapidated. Look at the side of this thing. You got wood decay all throughout. It really looks horrible. And it's decayed at the bottom here. And you can see I can just stick that screwdriver right in there. This is just not even existent. So this is just total dilapidation. And in a building complex like this, a vacation village with the association fee that it is, this should never happen. This should never be like this. This is building 10 continuing. This is the south side. What you see here is a repair that has been done for a cracked pipe, I presume. And there's the hose bib there. And what they did here, they cut a panel in and they used caulk. So if you paint over this, it's just going to stick out like a sore thumb. It's not been replaced in a very professional manner. A good solution here is make an access panel with a hinge door. If all these units are constantly needing pipe attention, let's make a uniform panel that has hinges on it, that's trimmed out nice, that looks attractive, that is insulated, so we can access those pipes for inspection or repair and not have this place looking like a butcher job like this is here. Any repair like this where you're cutting siding out, it was done pretty square, but you have to put it back and putty it in and try to blend it and make it undetectable. And that's not what you see here. This is just a rubber caulk, rubberized caulk, probably paintable, but you'll see it stick out like a sore thumb. Also, below is a real eyesore. What you have here is a bumped out section that was bumped out probably to attach the AT&T phone line box, and they extended the hose bib out to there. What they did is they built attached to the wall a 2x2 frame structure, and that's what you have here. This is a 2x2. This is framing material. Any framing material should never be seen as an exposed component of a finished building. This is interior framing structure. What they did here is they made a box and just rough cut a panel and put it on here and painted it up and caulked it in. Caulk is breached. I'm sure water's getting back there. You can see it's looks pretty unappealing. The panel itself wasn't even cut to the right size. When you put a panel up here, you're supposed to scribe it, at least measure the damn thing. And if you're doing a bump out like this, you have to cap it off with the finished material, and you can even bevel it a little bit so the water sheds off of here. And that would have to be the 1x material, which is what you see here. This is the stuff you use to finish houses. This is not a finished look. This is a makeshift repair that reduces property values here. Home inspectors see this and they question the abilities of the people doing the work around here. Building 17, at the bottom of this siding, you can see the backfill is too high. So what you have here is a condition where the dirt is trying to reclaim the wood here. You can stick that right in there. I see an ant crawling. This is an ecosystem now. This should be exposed at the bottom by at least an inch. So what's happening here is all the siding is decayed. You can see that here. And we've breached the first two lines of defense. The paint has been breached. The wood siding has been breached. If you get into the wood framing structure, the sill plate here, which is a pressure treated for added protection, but once you get in there and it's saturated all the time, it'll start decaying just like this. And ultimately what you have there is a major construction project on your hands. So we're not quite at that point yet, but if this is allowed to go any further, this is going to cost a lot of money to replace the framing structures here, because then you're inside the building. You're doing work inside the building. It's not exterior siding. Now it's interior finishes that are being affected by the decay and neglect of these buildings. This is building 57, unit 3, and this particular repair called out to me from the Holiday Trail as I was riding my bike down there. What you have here is a typical example of the type of work that's being done around here. What has happened here is the 1x6 board that was here decayed. So what they did is typical low-end handyman work, and they took a deck board and tried to use it, or used it, to replace the finish material board that was here. So what happens here is you have a deck board here. I know their thinking is deck boards are pressure treated. We can put pressure treated there and it won't rot. But that's not the way to approach this. It removes, it deters from the architectural integrity of these units, and is not the proper material, nor did they fasten this in the right way. So what you have here is a board that's thicker than the 1x material. 1x material is 3/4 of an inch thick. This board is 5/8 plus. So you can see what they did here. They tapered the board trying to meet the end, but you can see how thick this board is compared to what it's meeting. So when this board was original, it was trimmed out down here and met up with this bevel here. So what they did, it's cut short. They ended up caulking it. Didn't do any good. They fastened this with multi-purpose screws, which are not the right product for this. What you need is a finishing nail with a small head or a small finishing screw for finished trim. And then what you do is you take a hard material like a Durham's putty, and you putty in the holes of the screws, the screw heads. Here, they use a multi-purpose screw. They rub some caulk over here. If you paint this, you'll just see it. You're supposed to fill these holes to make them invisible. You should have repairs that cannot be detectable. This one is just calling out to me. Also, since this is a deck board, all these edges are rounded. That's not the architectural integrity of a finished side of a house. It's not finished material. That rounded edge is strictly to keep your feet from getting splinters as you're walking on it. Nobody's going to walk on this wall. So this says a lot about the decisions that are being made in maintenance and the strategy of just doing quick makeshift repairs using whatever's laying around. And that shouldn't be the case here, because this just called to me. I knew that there was a whole lot of bad going on here, and that's what you see here. Contributing to the erosion of Vacation Village property into the marina is this drain tile, which is supposed to be a catch basin, and there's a PVC pipe running off of here that you can see a portion of it down there that runs into the water. Water can't flow here because the pipe is clogged. It's probably been like that for years. So it pulls up here, rolls over, washes down the bank, and creates continued erosion of this area. This seawall here has been neglected. It hasn't been backfilled properly when it was built. It probably was at that point, but gravity has pulled the earth down, compacted it, which it does, and then you're supposed to put more dirt over the top of it. So ultimately what happened here is this is what you call a dead man. This is an anchor. They anchored this into the ground, welded tie rods to it to hold this wall in place. You could see the dead man has moved because it has not been properly filled over to reduce frost damage. So what you have here is total exposure of the elements that should be buried, because once you bury them, then you're insulating them to the frost. So the frost line here is between 42 and 48 inches. I'm sure this at the origination point of this project was there, but it is no longer. Now it's totally exposed, which allows it to move at will with the freeze and thaw cycles that we have here. So all along here, the whole wall is being pushed out. Every single dead man here is moving. So gravity's working on it. It's being eroded. Typically, something like this, you should fill it all the way up to the top of the wall. Any water that runs down there is going to flow over the edge of the wall. This should look like a golf course. This looks like maybe like an abandoned shipping canal to me. So you can see all the ties here, the total exposure, the backfill that's inadequate, and results in seawalls moving and being damaged. We've got a skid steer here just running. I've seen these guys how they work. They come over here, they take this skid steer, scoop up the mulch, put it in the back of the gator, and go spread it around the complex. Unfortunately, that machine is just running. So it may be running all day, wasting fuel. I'm sure there's a key in this thing. You turn it. If the battery's bad, if it needs a new battery to keep this thing starting and stopping, let's buy one. The cost of fuel is going to pay for that. It'll pay for itself. Here's landscape guys working over here at the maintenance area. This is not real work in my eyes. You got one guy standing around, the other guy just raking a pile of broken up asphalt. That doesn't really need to be done. You know, why does that need to be level? Let's get over here and take this topsoil. Let's work on projects, not just busy work. This is busy work. Two guys riding around in a gator, one watching, one raking. They're looking for shit to do. They got no direction down here. They probably are great workers, but they have no projects to work on. So that needs to be addressed right away. This is wasted money. You guys are doing a great job. Yeah. What do you got? What are you working on today? What are you working on today, man? Everywhere? Doing what? You got any projects you're working on?
Everywhere.
Everywhere? Where's your list?
Every day.
Where's your list of projects? You got no list? No? That's what I thought. Okay, thanks. Have a good day. Okay, we'll see. So over here, this is the channel out to the main lakes. This is a bridge that used to be used to bridge this area and keep trespassers out. It used to go along here and be part of the snowmobile trail going through the system here. We no longer do that. We just leave that stuff here to rot. And it's just doing nothing here. It's ready to be thrown into the dumpster or resurrected. There could be some hope for this yet, but I don't see that happening. I'm behind the club here, and this is a pile of wood that cannot be split. Trees that come off of this property, you know, whether they're diseased or die or get hit by lightning, that's fine. Let's take them down, but let's get this wood hauled away. What's happening here is these guys are cutting this into firewood, and I have a feeling it's just disappearing from the property. All this wood here is the stuff that's left over. It cannot be split. See how they're at the branches of the trees. Nobody can run a log splitter through these. So this is the remnant. So if this is the remnant, you can only imagine how much burnable, round, splittable firewood came out of here. I suspect it was probably almost a cord of wood, which is a pile 4 feet tall, 8 feet wide by 8 feet deep. And I know a lot of it went out to the beach where they have the big fire pit. But that fire box out there is so big, you can burn all that wood up in a weekend, because you can't enjoy the fire because the fire pit walls are too high. You can't really get close to the fire and enjoy the heat from the fire. So I saw some wood out there, and now it's gone. It was all burned up very quickly. This work here is extremely time consuming. I have an electric log splitter. I take logs off of my property down in Holiday Hills on the river, and to split it up is very time consuming. And this to me is a waste of time. Right here over in the maintenance area is a man-made pile of dirt. This is backfill that should have been used to fill in the marina seawalls. Right now it's been sitting here so long, there's 6-inch diameter trees growing on it, and our seawalls are falling into the waterway. This is the maintenance area here. This is alongside the garbage dump area. We have a tarp that's probably been laying here for a couple of years, not covering anything up, just very unsightly. Should just be picked up and thrown away. Over here we have a pile of topsoil that's being protected by a tarp. I don't know why that's like that. That can be spread around the area. There's plenty of areas that need backfill. There's plenty of areas that need backfill removed. So that's work that should be done. This should not just be stored back here. This is also a dumping ground for trees, blocks, asphalt. This should not be left back here. This should be tidy. This needs to be removed. It needs to be taken to a place that accepts this type of material. All that broken concrete back there should be put in our dump truck, taken to the place on Route 12 that accepts broken concrete for free. This area needs to be tidied up. We got a snow fence that's over here just in a ball, not being used. Looks like garbage to me. The whole area here is some chain link fence that's just been piled up here. There's an old pallet. You know, this is just very untidy. I know this stuff takes time to do, and maybe we don't have the time, but I think time needs to be made to make this property look attractive. Here's some more tarps here. We got one here. We got one here covering nothing. There's one there. This looks like the redneck yard of the month here. This is a dumpster that is on loan from Advanced Disposal. I'm sure we're paying for this as it sits here. It's not garbage, it's organic material. I'm sure it'll go in a landfill. Should have just been dumped around here. This is costing us money. It's just sitting here. There's no plan on moving this thing that I'm aware of. It's been sitting here for a long, long time, and just costing us money and making this place look like just unsightly. We are on the trail walking toward the the boat ramp, and what you have here is an old tire. Look at this place. Wow, vacation village, really resort-like. Some other floating debris here, just a collection of junk. There's been some blocks dumped here by our maintenance people. So this is not an attractive area. It needs to be cleaned up, it needs to be made presentable. All of these piles of gravel, we got sand, some river rock, and crushed limestone, and some wood chips. All that should be back over closer to the maintenance area where all that garbage should be removed from. This should be hidden. This should be a nice wooded, scenic trail down to the boat ramp. All in a day's work. We've got this guy over here just looking for things to weed whack. He's got no plan other than to get to the end of the day and punch that time clock. That tree doesn't need weed whacking. He's wasting gas here. There's really hasn't grown up here. It's too early in the season. He's got absolutely no reason to be there. He's making noise, wasting gas, wasting payroll. Here we are, same day, he's back. Just a little bit time later, here's the guy walking around, weed whacking nothing, wasting time, wasting fuel, wasting payroll, should be working on projects. Look at him. There's actually no growth here. There's no weeds to whack. He's just making noise and wasting our money.